Well, hello everyone, and hello Nate.
Hey Greg, how you doing today? We are still having trouble with Facebook. It's so confusing. We are live somewhere, not where we wanted to be, but we'll muddle through anyway. Well,
No,
we are
the
exactly.
one we're live where we wanted to be. I'm seeing it there. There's 15 people, I
Yeah,
think, or more.
yeah, but it's not. I can't get I can't access the backside of it, so I can't. Ch- anyway,
Well, we're on.
I'll work on that as we vamp. We are live. I'm Nate Swick. I am the host of the American Birding Podcast for the American Birding Association. I'm joined by Greg Neise, who is our webmaster. Together, we do What's This Bird live every couple of weeks. What we do is we talk about bird identification here on the internet live. We hope that you enjoy it, and we hope that you have comments as well. With the ABA hosts a bunch of why is that trying to update right now? The ABA hosts a bunch of Facebook groups, and one of them is called "What's This Bird Live" or "What's This Bird," and folks can upload photos of birds that they've seen. I'm flustered, Greg. I'm flustered.
Focus, Nate. Focus.
And upload photos of birds that they've seen, and they can be identified by our friendly community and admins. We are, and every once in a while, we grab some of those photos, and we're going to talk about them here live in front of all y'all. Welcome, Greg. Welcome
Yeah.
to everybody's out here. It's exciting to see so many friendly folks return. Hello, Christy Esmahan. Hello, Tom Green, Elizabeth Alton, John Anderson, Wayne Klockner, all the folks watching on YouTube and on Facebook. Carolyn Jones from Austin, Texas. We have a lot of folks watching along with us here. So we're going to have a great show today here, the first one of July. Happy summer. Happy official summer past the solstice. No turning back now.
And for those of you watching, Nate is watching YouTube. I am watching Facebook. So if you have something you want to say to us, you want to talk about something, have a question or just a comment, or just want to say hello, hit the comments. I don't see any comments yet in Facebook. So I hope
Because
that's working.
it's because it didn't load on the event that I set up. That's the problem. So I know there are people watching, but all the people that were expecting are not seeing it because the stupid event did. Oh no, now it's there. I don't understand how any of this works.
Okay.
The
Rick
internet
Sabo
is a
says we're
strange
here.
and elusive thing to me.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah. Just so you guys, it's Facebook does everything possible to make this as hard as it can possibly be.
I don't understand.
But yeah, okay. People are seeing us. I'm getting some feedback here.
We're there.
And
We're there.
good. All right.
All right, I'm here. You're here. Hello, Patty, Brandon, Susan, Scott. Go figure. Go figure.
Yeah,
Donna, our good friend Donna
Facebook,
Schulman. Hey,
Facebook
Donna.
needs to throw a little more duct tape and baling wire at
It
this
used to
because-
work. I don't understand why they have to change things that work into things that don't work all of a sudden. It drives me up the wall.
So how's your summer going, Nate?
It's hot here, Greg. It's hot.
Oh, it's hot everywhere.
I
just
finished
about.
up my breeding bird survey. I got a new so on the breeding bird survey that I do in Western Virginia. It's been run on and off since 1976, so it's the longest running breeding bird. Not by me. I
Yeah.
was not alive in 1976, but on and off for that almost 40, more than 40 years, 45 years, and I added a new bird to that route this year. So it's very
Really?
exciting.
What was that?
Do you want to guess what it was? You have
No,
any
I
idea
couldn't possibly
what
guess.
could be expanding into Western Virginia over the last 45 years?
Well, I mean, it could be black-bellied whistling duck. It could
It wasn't
be
nothing that exciting. Nothing that
Oh.
exciting.
was.
I won't spoil it if you still want to guess.
All right. Is it a passerine or a non-passerine?
Non-passerine.
Non-passerine. Limpkin.
Oh, I wish that would be amazing, and totally par for the course. It was a great egret, Greg. You were on the right track though. Great egret. No great egrets on this breeding bird route since 1976.
I would have never
that's
got
Chuckwell's
that.
Widow, which was really cool. Yeah. Well, I didn't see Chuckwell's Widow. I heard Chuckwell's Widow.
Yeah, we've been. I mean, the birding around here has been consistently decent for summer. All the summer breeding birds are where they should be, and we had a really bad drought. I mean, like the ground was like concrete, and then last Sunday it rained torrentially all day long.
Yeah.
I have a bucket in my backyard that's 17 inches by 8 inches or 9 inches or more, might be 10, whatever, but it's a big bucket, like the kind of thing you'd stuff with ice and beers in your backyard. It was filled 8 inches deep with rain. We got the heaviest, our town here got 8.5 inches of rain in 10 hours.
That's a lot of rain.
It was insanity.
Yeah.
It was insanity.
So has it affected the birds?
Well, I've noticed that the local birds are happy because they can actually find water, at least for a little bit. And the gardens are happy.
You're right by a big lake. You'd think they'd be able to.
You know what? The birds haven't figured out how to use the birds haven't figured out how to use the cribs to pump the water into their homes yet. But they'll get there. I mean, evolution is a wonderful thing. They'll get there.
Yeah, you got ravens. They'll figure it out.
Yeah. So we got a lot of people. We got a lot of people saying hi on Facebook. We've got Cinnamon, Steve, Daphne, Susan, Donna. Hi, Donna. A big, long-time good friend of the ABA. Scott, Brandon, Patty. So yeah, we're jiving here on Facebook, so that's good.
Yeah, we're doing well on. We got a ton of people on YouTube as well. We're excited to talk some birds at you.
So let's kind of dive into
do it.
Something else to talk about, which is
do some business.
A little bit of business. It's that time of the year when the American Ornithological Society releases their checklist supplement, and our own Michael Redder writes up an overview every year of the changes, which can be bewildering, even to those of us who know what's going on. They can be bewildering. Yeah. And he writes up a wonderful review of what exactly has happened in language that is easy to understand and digest. And you can see that wonderful post on our website. Just go to aba.org. It's right on the front page. You can't miss it. And check it out. But
did you lose a lifer, Greg?
I did.
I didn't, because I've only ever seen Pacific Slope flycatcher.
Oh, okay.
So it's a 1-to-1 chance for me.
I lost a lifer. So what Nate is referring to is that Pacific Slope flycatcher and okay, which one was it? It was Pacific Slope,
Cordilleran. We never have to worry about which way to pronounce it ever again.
Right. So
which is actually the nice thing about that one.
Cordilleran and Pacific Slope have been lumped and are now once again Western flycatcher.
Western flycatcher.
Way
out western.
Yes. Thank you. Whoever is who's ever logged in as the ABA and posted that link in the chat and Facebook. Thank you.
Yep.
So yes, and the other news for ABA area birders.
Dallas Herald says Cordilleran. I don't know. I don't care anymore. Flycatcher was on his life list for 39 days. 39 days. That's not bad.
Well, you know. And the other bit of news from this supplement update is that we gained a species.
A couple, actually, on the ABA checklist.
What was the other one? All right, so we've got the American goshawk now. So let's do that one first.
Split. Yeah. So goshawk split was used to be a whole Arctic species, American goshawk and a Eurasian goshawk. They have been split. They are their own species now. So we have American goshawk now instead of northern goshawk. Apparently, they're not really each other's closest relatives, which is one of the wild things about genetics. And the split of house martin, common house martin, got split to a Eurasian and Siberian, I think. And the ABA has records of both the Asian one, Siberian, I think. So I need to follow that link. In Alaska, and there is one record of the Eurasian house martin and Saint-Pierre and Miquelon, the little forgotten French island south of Newfoundland. That is the only bird on the ABA checklist where the sole record comes from Saint-Pierre and Miquelon. So there's a little bit of taxonomic trivia for you. ABA checklist.
And Chris Ortega on Facebook says that he had Cordilleran for 5 days. So
5 days, 5 days.
Yeah, so we've got,
I never had it at all.
We have
Adios.
American goshawk
I go
and
so
Eurasian
gold.
goshawk. Eurasian goshawk has a few records from Alaska. I think there's 3 or 4 records from Alaska. So some very lucky
Yep.
vagrant hunters have a couple of extra ticks and
The ticks, but the rest of
lose
us
one.
lost a species. Most everybody lost a species. So it goes. It was a weird split anyway, and now it is no more. Western flycatcher. Your old
Right,
Peterson
Chris?
guide is now appropriate again.
So Rick Szabo says,
longer.
is AMGO, AMGO, now a goldfinch or a goshawk? The answer is
So
neither.
neither.
So what we're talking about, folks, here is the banding codes, which birders like to use. I like to use them, but I'm dyslexic and I always mess them up. But it doesn't stop me from trying
I
anyway.
use them in my personal notes.
But some banding codes are really easy to memorize and fun, and like one of them, like, and some are so fun that they're made into shirts. So horned lark, for instance, is HOLA, Ola, and American goldfinch was AMGO. So there was a
Amigo.
T-shirt that said "Hola, amigo," "Hola, amigo." But because American goldfinch, or AMGO, could be either the goldfinch or the goshawk, the rules are it can be neither. Because it could be either, the rule says it has to be neither. So it's AGOL for the goldfinch and AGOS for the goshawk.
Yeah. Which is weird because American goldfinch is a finch, not a gull.
Boy, you promised me you weren't going to do that.
I'm working on that. Yeah. So for folks
Hang
asking
on,
whether or not it's
gotta
going
go
to show
drop
up on,
if we're going to go
eBird,
down that
eBird
route, I
uses-
got to drop some vodka in this, okay?
So folks asking whether or not when it's going to show up on their eBird. eBird Clements is a different taxonomic authority, and there are a few other additional changes that the AOS didn't make that are going to apply to your eBird checklist, which causes a kind of an interesting conundrum. But they do their really big update later in the summer, sometime in August, and that's when the lump should go through on your eBird checklist. I assume that Clements is going to accept it. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't.
Yeah. And I would also bet for those...
They did split some albatrosses and some stuff that are relevant to the ABA area that AOS isn't doing. But
for those who are in Facebook posting their favorite banding codes, my favorite is Great Egret, and if you check it out, you can understand why. It's actually not my favorite, but I like it.
Chris Ortega asks, "How do I know what Clements is doing?" I found a. I'll share it with you. It's this North Carolina birder named Kent Fiala. I don't know if he's watching or not. Hey Kent, if you are. He always does weird little doodads with the eBird checklist, but he somehow found in the code the Clements updates, and I'll post that in the chat too if you want to have a look at it. It's kind of a weird computerese language, but you can still get most of it. Ted posted that in the ABA Slack. I forget where that went.
Yeah, and I would bet at least, well, if I was running that part of eBird, I would bet they keep AMGO as a shortcut that would pull up both the goshawk and the goldfinch, and then you could just decide which one to tap.
Oh yeah, they always do that.
Because your people are so used to typing in AMGO as they're using the eBird app. So that, at least that to me seems like the logical thing to do, because
there's a lot of ones that do that where two things will pop up, like European Starling and European Storm Petrel. Which
exactly.
was a problem before.
Exactly.
Before people started figuring that out.
Okay. Cinnamon Stewart says FLOW, a flammulated owl, I'm assuming is theirs.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to move on here from
Canada cat That's
from
a much better
banding
example.
codes and checklist supplements, and we're going to start.
Let's talk about actual birds.
Bird
Greg.
pictures.
That's what people are here for.
Yeah. So there, push the right button. This one comes to us from Westchester, New York. And
north of the city.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why I chose this photo. What's that?
It's a good angle.
Oh, I thought you said it's an eagle.
No. It's angle.
As a joke. Yeah, no, it's a cool angle. It's a cool angle because you can't see the face. Um, and you can really only tell a couple of things here about this bird. One is it's out on the edge of a what appears to be a rather small branch because we can make out sort of the bud scars on the branch.
Mm-hmm.
And it's black and white with a big, bold white rump.
Yeah.
And so it reminded me when I was looking at this photo, it reminded me of way, way back in the day when I was running the Illinois Birders Forum. We had a photo quiz run by Michael Redder before either one of us worked at the ABA. And he used to like to he used to like to post photos that showed a feature that very few birds that it might be mistaken with have. So, where I'm going with this is we can tell that this is a passerine. I would say, wouldn't you?
Yes, fair enough. I give you that.
A passerine is
Size,
a perching bird.
yeah, the way
Like
it's sitting.
warblers and finches and vireos and jays and all of that. It's not a woodpecker. The tail is notched in the center, and we don't see any of the very characteristic pointed tail feathers of a woodpecker.
Yeah.
And
Woodpeckers just sit like this sometimes, and it's always very disconcerting when you see them perch like this. Northern flickers seem to do it more than most, but yeah, they have a very distinctly shaped tail when you see them do that.
Exactly, and because of that, we can discount the woodpeckers. So if we look at passerines in the ABA area,
not too many that are black and white like this.
Well, there's only 10 that have white rumps. And those are the shrikes. So
not a shrike. This
is not a shrike. The tail is too short. There's way too much white on the back and on the wing. So it's not a shrike. And shrikes have gray backs. They don't have black backs. Red-vented bulbul. It's definitely not a red-vented bulbul, especially not in Westchester, New York.
It would be possible, but no.
Northern wheat ear. It's not a wheat ear because wheat ears have kind of
tan on the ground.
Tan backs. They tend to sit on the ground, but they're not black and white. They're kind of tan and white. Snow bunting. Snow bunting in summer in New York, highly unlikely. On a perch like this, even more unlikely.
All over. Yeah,
and exactly, it has white up on the head and all of that. It has a white head, basically. Bobolink. So
kind of that yellowish kind of beige on the back of the head.
It has the yellow on the back of the head and in the wing panel. Brambling. And I think you will remember from St. Paul that when they fly up, it's like, whoa, you're startled by the white rumps, Our red poles. It's not a red pole, again, because of the black head and back. Red poles have very streaky backs, and they're brown. Mostly with white rumps. Yeah, so it's not a red pole. And then the two eastern goldfinches, American and Eurasian, and both of those have yellow in them and would not be confused with this bird. So the only one that is black and white on the back like this is rose-breasted grosbeak,
which just so happens to be a very common breeding bird in the eastern deciduous forest. I would expect there to be quite a few of them around Westchester, New York.
Yeah, so in the eastern part, well, actually, anywhere rose-breasted grosbeak can be found. If you see something flash across the road with a big white rump, it's
big white patches in the wings too,
and big white patches in the wings, which are very noticeable. It's almost certainly going to be a rose-breasted grosbeak, and you can get there with a very simple and quick process of elimination. All righty. Oh.
Just so happens that we have,
it just so happens our next bird.
Are we going to go through all the birds with white rumps again?
No, we're not. We just did that. This one comes from Greenland, and I think it's pretty obvious what this bird is. Anybody who's been studying the field
Not too many
guide.
birds in Greenland right now. Not too many terrestrial birds, I should say, in Greenland right now this time of year.
And really, there is,
Perching
unless it's
birds.
an aberrant plumage, there really is no North American bird that looks anything like this.
No, the bright white head, the white all over the black back. This is the snow bunting. We can't even see the white rump,
Yes.
but I imagine it's
No.
there. But everything else is white.
But the reason I popped this one up is because I wanted to talk a little bit about molt or lack of it. And so here's three images
Snow
of
bunting's
snow
a great
buntings
molt.
at different times of the year. And what we're looking at, we talk about this occasionally with snow buntings and vesper sparrows and a few other birds, that to reach what we call breeding or alternate plumage, they don't actually molt, that is, change their feathers. The feathers wear down to expose a different pattern. Red-winged blackbird is another classic example of this.
Rusty blackbird,
Rusty blackbird.
house sparrow.
Yep. So we see
European
this
starling.
bird on the top left with all these brown fringes and everything, and a very typical winter snow bunting. And then in the center,
Indeed, that is the plumage that most birders in the ABA area will be familiar with, because that's the one that comes down into the lower 48 and even southern Canada,
yeah,
in large numbers. They are they're breeding birds we don't see very often because they are way up there.
yeah, yeah. They breed on the tundra. And in the center there, we can see sort of beyond halfway, but not quite in full alternate. And so you can see the remaining fringes on the back and a little bit on the head, and especially like in the wing panel there, you can see how the tertials, you can see the edge of the fringe, how they're just not as smooth as the bird on top. And then on lower right, of course, is the breeding plumage, and all of the fringing is worn off. And then not too long after this, they molt and then go back to looking like the bird at the top left.
Yep, absolutely. I was going to say something. Lighter colored feathers tend to wear faster than dark feathers. So dark
Yes.
feathers have. We probably talked about this on this show before. The dark feathers have melanin in them, and melanin is not just a coloring agent; it's also a strengthening agent. It makes feathers stronger, and so the white tips on these feathers are going to wear faster than the dark feathers that have melanin in them. Those are going to be stronger. Those are going to last longer. That's actually one of the reasons why a lot of white birds, all white birds like snow goose, white ibis,
Gulls.
wood stork, gulls, etc., have black tips on their wings, because that's the part of the wing that endures the greatest force when the bird flaps, and so that's the part of the wing that needs to be the strongest, or it'll wear faster. So that's why a lot of birds have black tips on their wings. So another little bit that they're melanated wing tips.
And that is
Snow bunting.
our science. That is our Science Friday moment for the
That's
day.
your science corner.
And let's move
Bird
on
color corner.
to Ottawa, Ontario. Coming to us from Canada, of course. Rusty blackbird.
Stephen Williams asked their bill colors change too. I guess he's referring to the snow buntings, but yeah, I think it
Yes.
does. Like the enamel or the whatever is on the outside of it kind of wears off over the course of the year as well for the same reasons. That's a good observation. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, we're looking at another perching bird here, Greg, with the kind of spindly, scrawny legs. Pretty sturdy bill. One of those kind of all-purpose bills. Broad at the base, a little curved across the top. Bird's all black. That's a clue.
Well, it's kind of brown. I think that's got a lot to do with the lighting, but also the plumage that the bird is in. We can see some yellow at the edge of the mouth there, the gape as it's called, which is a good clue that this bird is a juvenile and is not in breeding plumage. It's a very common bird in the eastern part of the ABA area. And as you were saying, the flight feathers and tail feathers there
Looking awfully rough.
give us a good hint, and the face too, that this is a
And the body
black
too. My
bird. And those strong legs and that thick, long bill, that all leads us to blackbirds. There's really there's no jay or anything that kind of looks like this that is found in our area. And the tail, the tail looks, you can see it's a little bit graduated. It's growing in. It's a little scruffy. But this is a young common grackle.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was like, say, a rusty blackbird, the bill would be much sharper. You'd have a lot more scallopy, that edging on there that you were talking about a bit. This bird, this time of year, the juveniles travel in big flocks and make a lot of noise. And really, especially in urban areas between the starlings and the grackles, those are the two birds you're going to see that look kind of like this, that are flying around in big groups.
For sure. Status and Distribution is doing a lot of our work here. There are a number of grackles here in North America, but in Ottawa, Ontario, there really is only one grackle that's possible, and that is our common grackle.
Absolutely. Susan Nelson asks Orchard Oriole and the rusty plumage there, or at least the rusty appearing plumage. And I think the low light, it looks like this is morning or late afternoon light, and I think that's enhancing.
Yeah, the
color.
camera looks like it's oversaturating,
and the
things a little
camera's
bit too.
doing some work there as well. No, an Orchard Oriole would be much rustier, and have a very
and just kind of lankier too. They have a
thinner,
longer
smaller
body. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but Orioles have a very distinctive bill coloration too. They kind of have like a blue on the base of their lower mandible. All of our Orioles have that, and I don't know if the young, like juvenile Orioles have it. It wouldn't surprise me either way, but I don't see that here, is what I'm saying.
Gavin on Facebook asked, what type, bronze, purple, or intergrade? I believe that's beyond the pay grade of this program. With this particular,
I mean, what is it? It's purple in the east and bronze in the center
but
of the
Ottawa,
continent.
I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah,
could be either. I don't know. I'm not really familiar with which.
I need to see the adult.
Yeah. Whoa!
It's just such a weird bird. Such a weird looking bird.
Okay, so Florida, this could be anything.
Yeah.
What do we got here?
My goodness, this is such a strange posture that I think that's causing
everything's
to pause here. But
so I'll just say, the person who posted
sturdy bill.
The person who posted
look,
this
it's Florida. So
asked if it was a water bird, like a.
Look, when I first looked at it, first impression, I was like, "What the heck is that? An Anhinga?"
Yeah.
Just because of the way it's kind of sitting there, and then that second later you realize it's not. The bill is sturdy. The bill is kind of long. I see why you might think water. I mean, I guess it is a water bird in the sense that you might see it near water, but it's not a water bird in the sense that it's a heron or egret or any of those, or cormorant.
I'm going to back up. I'm going to back up just a second. And so
chicken, you're not wrong.
Look
Susan.
look at this bird's bill. And now imagine it just a little bit longer and heavier. And notice the little kind of crick in the mouth line, the gape line there. Also notice the sort of black vest that's going on.
The pattern on the head too is also noteworthy as well. That's the sort of thing that stood out to me. That eye line, the kind of grayish along the face. There's a bird that sunbittern. Exactly, me McPherson suggests sunbittern. Yeah. That crossed my mind.
We've got two pileated woodpecker guesses. Now, one way we can tell this is not a pileated woodpecker is that we can see three toes facing forward.
Yeah.
And it's also perched at the top of grass, which gives us a really strong clue as to this bird's habitat and its size. and it's like weighing down the grass.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy, pretty bulky.
And I think that when you start really going through the process of elimination, you'll get there fairly quickly. The other thing about this bird that makes it look strange is the tail seems kind of short, and the neck looks really long.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a confusing
it's
look.
a confusing one.
And rather than go any further with this, one of the great things about the What's This Bird group is that we have some of North America's absolute top field ornithologists who chime in this group and lay little bits of knowledge and nuggets of wisdom on us. People like David Sibley and Ken Kaufman, and in the case of blackbirds, Alvaro Jaramillo. As a matter of fact, you said you just got done interviewing Alvaro for a podcast episode.
Yeah, it's going to be on the podcast next week. Al's great. He's one of those guys I can literally talk to about just about anything having to do with birds, and he always has something insightful to say.
And for
in that
a long
case,
time.
It's going to be about El Nino and El Nino's effect on birds. In this case, it's because, I don't know if folks know this, but Alvaro actually wrote the book on blackbirds and orioles, the family guide. And which is what this bird is. And once you sort of realize that, you realize that Florida is. Are we going to go ahead and say it? Have we said it?
I'm going to read what Alvaro wrote about this bird. I'm just going to, rather than beat around the bush and do what we normally do, I'm just going to read what he says about this bird, because there's a whole lot of wisdom to be dropped in one paragraph. He says, this is Alvaro Jaramillo. He says, this is a boat-tailed grackle.
Boat-tailed grackle.
But there's a lot of cool stuff going on here. It is not a juvenile, as that is the first feathered plumage of a bird, and this bird has new black and older grayish feathers. It is not an adult either, but in a transitional stage. You could call it a molting immature, or you could get deeper into it and find the correct molt plumage terminology. It is a male, as the new black underpart color is black and not warm brown, as it would be in a female. Yet there's also something trivial but interesting going on here. Look at the tail. The newer feathers are blackish. The older feathers are brownish. New World blackbirds have a very odd tail molt. Essentially, all of our blackbirds begin with tail molt with the central feathers. All of our songbirds begin with the tail molt with the central feathers and end with the outer ones. So they go from the middle out.
Inside out.
But blackbirds start on the outer tail feathers or near outer and proceed inward. Adult grackles are so in a rush to molt their tail that they actually often drop the whole thing right about mid to late August. Seeing blackbirds and grackles with no tail is common in the early fall. At this point, they are almost always in flocks. Younger birds often do a slower tail molt and do not drop the entire tail. So there's a lot going on here. So yes, this is a bolt-tailed grackle in a very transitional
it's probably
state
last summer's
being.
Bird, you think? Yeah,
maybe, or very, in Florida they could be breeding at any time of the year.
That's exactly right. That's probably true.
And it's because the feathers are missing on the neck and front, and they're all scraggly and everything. We can actually see how long their neck really is, because it's usually all these big fluffy feathers, and you can't see it. And
Gavin, and the tail dropping thing is a great insight too, because here where I live in North Carolina, when we go out to the coast, we have boat-tailed grackles, very common. If you go out in the late summer, they're completely missing their tail. And if you've seen a boat-tailed grackle without a tail, it is a weird shaped bird, because they are so big and bulky and round-headed in the front, but then when they don't have their tail, it's just like they're like they're weird chickens running around. It's just a strange thing, and when you see them flying, sometimes they even look like common grackles. But they're boat-tails.
And Gavin points out the Florida subspecies because of the dark eye. Yes.
And the location.
I mean, it says so right there on the slide. I mean, come on. I could have put SSP after that. But
That's right.
All right, on to our next bird here. This is one of the most confusing birds
Yeah.
in North America. This bird gets more discussion than almost anything, and confuses more people. As a matter of fact, while I was googling images and looking for comps and things, I found so many so many things that could be confused with this and likewise misidentified. So what do we got going on here?
Oh, we've got a small perching bird that's, well, I would assume it's a perching bird. I guess you can't really tell that. It could be like a galliform, a quail or something. But
No, I
I
think
think
the
I see a
long
pretty long
tail
tail
and
on this thing.
the legs aren't big and sturdy like a galliform.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So this is a little bird on a looks like a washed out road, dirt road, gravel.
Mm-hmm.
Very streaky, very not streaky. I'm scalloped on the back and on the face. It's got two very skinny little wing bars. But a bird that's running around on bare ground like this is going to be a lark or a pipit. Those are the two kind of species that it immediately makes me think.
Yeah,
So
or a
horned
longspur,
lark.
especially
Yeah, I guess a long. It
up
looks
in
a little
that part.
tall for long spurs. They
It
tend to
kind
be a
of
little bit
does.
closer to the ground, a little bit shorter legs. But yeah, long spur too,
I think
especially
the
female. But the bill doesn't look right for long spur. It's relatively
no.
skinny and thin. So American pipit, Sprague's pipit, horned lark would be where I'm going on this bird.
Um, yeah, and the overall kind of scalloped, spotted eye ring with an open face and that short kind of, it's not quite chunky, but it's not super thin bill. I mean, that's a real, like you said, it looks like a lot of things, but it doesn't quite check the boxes.
Yeah.
And up in that part of the world, in Idaho and the Great Plains, up in that part of the world, um, the bird that people are really looking for is Sprague's pipit. And every year, so many people see this bird, which is a horned lark in juvenile plumage,
GB.
and report them as Sprague's pipits. And here we can see a Sprague's pipit compared with this horned lark. And you'll see, for one thing, the color is very different. Horned larks tend to be kind of more, in this plumage anyways, tend to be a little more grayish and spotted than rich brown. But
More
notice the
scallops
scallops and
streaks.
spots versus the streaks.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that really, all the other birds that could be running around on the ground like that, they're streaky like the pipit.
Yeah, for sure. There's the classic story of, actually, Skylark. We could throw Skylark in there too if you want to get really, if you want to get real wild. But the funny story of the Connecticut Sprague's pipit, how someone reported what would have been a first state record Sprague's pipit in Connecticut, and it wasn't until a few days later that people realized it was a young horned lark. So this is a very common identification challenge, and you always got to keep horned lark in your head because they are chimeras. They can look like a lot of different things.
They absolutely right, and they're also interesting because they breed at almost any time of the year, depending on where you are, and oftentimes birds like this can show up in March. They can show up in November. And they can be really confusing. One thing about the pipit, Sprague's pipit is a really unique species. And there's another bird Alvaro likes to talk about because it's more closely related to the South American pipits than our American pipit, and which is a whole Arctic kind of complex of birds, whereas Sprague's
there's a lot
is
of it's pipits all over the world.
very different.
North America is probably the most depauperate region in the on the planet. Maybe Australia. I don't think Australia is depippeted. Yeah, depauperate, depippeted.
The thing that I like about this particular image of this particular Sprague's pipit is that this is a totally classic pose of Sprague's pipit. walking away from you with that pigeon head looking over its shoulder. I'm totally being serious. And look at how the eye is kind of high up on the face and is kind of almond shaped at the back. That is actually a thing. And that's Sprague's. I mean, birds, of course, they can widen their eyes, but that's just classic Sprague's pipit right there versus the sort of wide-eyed, kind of open-faced look of the lark next to it. It's very subtle, but it's there.
I have a terrible photo of Sprague's pipit on.
I've got some awesomely terrible pictures of Sprague's pipits.
And I'm actually going to look for it to see if it's doing the thing, because I think it might be doing the thing. I'll have to dig it out. Oh yeah, not North Carolina. It's doing
Chris
the thing
Sloan
that
says
said.
even when they says even when they don't have the horns, that skylark like peaked crown always stands out.
Skylark has a crown. Yep.
To me, with the horned lark in typical posture. Yep. Also, I just want to say hi to Alan watching from Guyana. Welcome.
What a guy, Anna.
Oh. Okay. This one comes to us from New Jersey, kind of getting close to your neck of the woods there.
Oh, yeah, this is I don't think this was on the document that you sent me.
It was.
Glanced over it. All right, so what we've got here is a bird that is nesting underneath an eave, which I think is a identification point, a field mark for this bird. It's got a real flycatchery vibe for me on this one, Greg. The kind of upright posture, the plain plumage all over, the apparently kind of flat bill. I'm getting a flycatcher look for this guy.
Yeah, we got wing bars there. We've got that yellow fleshy gape, which tells us that
it's got a gape. It's a young bird.
This bird is a young bird in the nest.
I would wait for the parent to come by.
See, now here's the thing,
That's what I would do.
If that bird were sitting with nothing but the back of its head showing and hunkered down in the nest, we could still positively identify it because the nest is unique.
Yeah, that's what
there's very few birds that nest up under eaves and things like that the way this bird is doing. Barn swallow is one. Barn swallow nests superficially look like this, but they're made entirely out of mud. And they look like they're made of like little cement pellets. Carolina wrens build these big
messy nests.
Messy balls of sticks.
I've got one in my garage right now.
The moss that's used in this nest is the clue. One of our birds in the east loves to use moss like this on their nest, and that is eastern phoebe.
Yeah, that's what I would have guessed. That's what I would have guessed for this one. That nest, I've seen so many eastern phoebe nests up underneath the eaves of houses, old barns, sheds. Even once I even found like a natural eastern phoebe nest that was on kind of like a rock face, which surprised me because it's the only time I've ever seen an eastern phoebe nest and on natural substrate that wasn't on man-made structure.
The only eastern phoebe nest I've ever photographed was inside a cave in southern Illinois, and it was like 20 feet in. They were flying in and out of the cave. Cool. The birds were in the dark completely. Yeah. Excuse me. So yes, this is a fledgling or about to be fledgling eastern phoebe in Basking Ridge, New Jersey.
You can even see a little bit of the young eastern phoebe has a little bit of yellow underneath it on the belly and on the bottom of the breast.
That's starting to come in.
That along this bird too. Top of porch lights. Yep. Here's another weird photo. You got a lot of really wild stuff this time, Greg.
Yeah.
Baby bird season, I guess. And baby birds.
It is baby bird season, precisely. And I don't know that these are babies. They look pretty honking big.
Yeah.
I mean, those are
big old messy nest.
Those are 2x12s they're sitting on. So
yeah.
Or bigger.
Yeah, it's a massive. These are some massive birds, hunkered over like that. I get a marabou stork vibe, Greg. from these birds, which in Galveston, Texas, is unlikely. Um, yeah, so I mean these are big, long-legged wading birds, big, long-necked, long bill.
Well, we can't see
This
the
is one
legs,
a
so we kind of
heron
have to.
egret. Well, I assume because of the way it's standing pretty tall. That one on the left, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yep. The things that we can see are the body is pretty much overall dark, but the birds are backlit, and the photo leaves a little bit to be desired. Um, the birds have heavy spike-like blackish bills,
Yeah.
and it's got a dark cap and kind of like white under the face. So focus on that. One of the guesses here and also on the post where this came from was wood storks in the nest, juvenile wood storks. Wood storks at this age have big honking yellow bills.
Body would be lighter in color, I would expect on a
Yeah.
wood stork too. Kind of
And
a
they also
beigey,
have bald
dirty,
heads.
dirty white. Yeah.
And they have bald heads.
Dark Crystal movie trailer. Yes. These are,
The other guess was
whatever.
brown pelican. And these birds look really bizarre. But as we're about to see right now, baby pelicans look even more bizarre.
Yeah.
So here's we got some baby brown pelicans on the right compared to the bird in question on the left. And
I don't usually think of brown pelicans as making a nest, a big old stick nest like that either. When
Yeah,
they do
they
make a
don't,
nest in
but-
trees like these, they make a stick nest, but it's not big. And sometimes they even nest on the ground on like a barrier island or something.
Yeah.
On top of a structure like this, I wouldn't expect a brown pelican to be.
No, but it could happen. But yeah, but I mean, especially if you look at the pelican on the left side of the picture on the right, they have a very unusual looking face and bill, and really can't be confused with anything. So I'm just going to cut to the chase here. These are two young great blue herons. And,
I think there's a third one.
Oh yeah, there is a third one in
young
there.
great blue herons.
Yep, 3 young great blue herons. We've got that dark cap and that the white lower part of the face, and that heavy spike-like bill, and just a big monstrous dinosaur-looking bird. These are great blue herons.
That would certainly be my guess. The Chris Sloan does say magnificent frigate bird.
I don't know the frigate birds nest in Galveston.
I don't know. They're there. I don't know if they nest there.
They're
though.
around.
That's a good question.
But
around.
frigate birds have a longer, thinner bill with a hook at the tip.
Yeah,
it's very long. And
they
frigate
have
birds
super
are
tiny
actually,
little feet, and I wouldn't expect them to be standing quite as high.
Yeah,
as
you would see them like they lay down almost because they have no feet. Frigate birds are one of those birds that spend most of their life in the air, and their feet they're like swifts, almost
non-existent.
giant piratic swifts. But the frigate birds are also related to pelicans and have that sort of long neck like this. Now, of course, these herons have very long necks too, but they're all hunkered down. Yes, these are 2 young great blue herons. And
Is that all we got? Is that all we
that's
got?
all
Are
we
finished?
got. We got a
nailed
few
it.
minutes here.
Nailed it
Usually we're
again.
running over a little bit. Today, we're not. So if you guys got any questions or anything you want to talk about, we've got a few minutes here, and we would love to hear from you.
Cinnamon Stewart says, go to Galapagos with Alvaro and see magnificent frigate bird and great frigate bird nesting sites. Yes, you can. They both nest there. And that's an identification conundrum that I don't want to deal with, the one between magnificent frigate bird and great frigate bird. The males, at least. The females and young birds, you can tell the difference. But that's a tough one. Apparently, they're iridescent. The gloss is different on them. Like great
Which
frigate
is
bird
always
is more of
easy
kind of a
to see,
greeny
right?
gloss. Oh yeah, definitely. That's okay. Any opinions on the splits and lumps that the AOS did or didn't do? I am in favor of the Western lump split, the Western flycatcher lump.
I agree with that. Because I mean Even people who really know what they're doing with those birds are half the time or more like,
I am fairly ambivalent on the rest. I think they all seem fine to me, and I don't believe it. I gained it or lost any birds this time around, which is sort of nice. Um, Green equals great, magenta equals magnificent. Yes, there you go. I love that. Chris Ortega says, "What taxonomic changes are we expecting to see on Clements?" A handful of them, a few splits. They handled some of the old world splits that the AOS does not deal with. But there is a kind of a significant albatross split that Clements accepted and will put into place this fall, this later in the summer, that will impact the ABA checklist a little bit, potentially impact the ABA checklist. But the albatross taxonomy is a real mess. I mean, you want to talk about a group of birds that are extremely difficult. Every little island group has its own kind of genetically isolated population of birds, and they all come
yeah,
back to the same places every time. It's interesting, but there's far more species of albatross than we probably give credit for. There was, however, the a split or recognition of a new species of a Australasian bird that has perhaps the best bird name I have ever seen, Greg, and you may know what I'm talking about here.
I do.
The Supertramp Whiptail, obviously named after the prog rock band from the 70s and 80s. I'm not kidding. It's called the Supertramp Whiptail.
Yeah.
It's not named after the band. Apparently, the band. Apparently, it's an ecological term as well, having to do with like changing quickly, dynamically changing habitats or something like that. But Supertramp Whiptail is a great name for a bird.
A neighbor of mine in the 70s, when I was a teenager, wrote the very first fan letter to Supertramp.
Oh, really?
Yes, the very first fan letter they ever got.
The very first Supertramp letter
and
to Supertramp.
For years they sent him tickets to every concert they did in the Chicago area. More little Supertramp trivia there. A couple mentions of Willet splits, and yeah, that's one I agree with a lot. I mean,
it came up a few years ago. It did not get accepted. The AOS tends to be pretty conservative with those.
Yeah.
I think there's no overlap between the two breeding populations. It feels cut and dry to me. But currently is not split by either taxonomic authority. Although I think IOC might split them.
Yeah. Whoops.
Everyone's got splits.
Yeah, I know.
Stephen Williams asks, any expectations with El Nino? Any significant changes in activity patterns and behaviors with the storms and weather? Hard to say. As El Nino is still relatively early, if we're really going to see some interesting stuff, then it's probably going to come later in the summer and into the fall. But I actually had a conversation with Alvaro Jaramillo about that very thing that's going to be published. It's going to be released in the American Birding Podcast next week. So you can listen there. We talk about, pelagic expectations, some other stuff. But, El Nino has been, and this looks like an almost super El Nino this year. A lot of warming, and it's caused a lot of interesting things. It's generally been, that's part of the reason why we've had such a wet spring in the Southeast. It typically means that, I don't know what it means in your area, this El Nino, but it means that a lot of pelagic birds, especially because warmer water tends to be less productive in terms of food, the birds are going to have to move and to find food, and could mean some interesting things turning up later in the year.
Yeah, Gavin brings up sandwich tern, and yeah, that's one that's actually near and dear to my heart. And watch the ABA members watch for a very interesting article coming to our website in a matter of days, if not sooner, concerning sandwich terns.
David Sibley wrote that, didn't he?
Written by David Sibley. And I say that one's near and dear to my heart because I worked quite a bit on the identification of sandwich terns, which is the book behind me. Let's see. No, I don't have it right at hand. But it was included in the Challenge series, a wonderful British guide called the Challenge series. And I worked on that for quite a few months. And we kind of like figured out. This is going back to 2010. Figured out how to tell the two apart, European and American. And after going through all of that, I'm really I'm really convinced they are two species that should be split.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that means, sorry, Elise May, that the Eurasian species would be retain the name sandwich tern, and our North American ones would be, what is it, Cabot's tern.
Cabots.
It's an eponym, or maybe they come up with something different for that. But Cabot's tern was our North American subspecies of sandwich tern that would get its own species in the event of a split.
Absolutely. So, yes, everybody wants a better name than Cabot's tern. I think we're all in agreement here that Cabot's tern is kind of a sucky name, and hopefully something more interesting will.
Cabot. Look it up. It's Cabot.
Well, I don't really. It doesn't really matter who or what.
I'm just curious.
Sure.
Samuel Cabot the Third.
Mm.
There you go. Related to John Cabot, the famous John Cabot of Boston. Anyway,
but yeah, so David simply goes through all of the forms, including the Caribbean forms, which is called Cayenne tern, which has an all yellow bill.
Yeah, I was going to say, if it's the other one is sandwich tern, then we've got to have, like, what is the North American sandwich, like
taco tern,
grinder tern, hero tern.
Elise May suggests taco tern.
Hoagie tern. There it is.
Mustard
think of a North
tern.
American sandwich.
Okay, we're really close to just going completely off the rails here in these last 2 minutes, but that's all right because it's all about you. Whatever you guys want to yak
turn.
about,
That's
just
right.
bring it up.
Thanks, Joshua.
What's
the
that?
wrap turn? You got to switch from the bread is high in high in carbs, so you got to go to a wrap.
Turn.
Wrap turn.
Grinder
Because we're
turn.
wrapped.
Okay, yeah, I think we'll stay away from
Grinder.
that one.
Hoagies and grinders. Hoagies and grinders.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, I mean,
we'll
if
be
we
back
have, I mean,
in
if we
a
look
couple
at,
weeks.
if we look at the Atlantic as a body of water, the way we look at the United States, with left coast, and so we could have left turn and right turn.
What if you get four of them? If you get four or three, what if you get three left turns in one place? Does that make a right turn?
Okay.
If you enjoy this sort of programming, please consider joining the American Birding Association, ava.org/join. You can help us out, and otherwise we'll be back in a couple weeks to talk. Actually, I'm not. Will we? Yeah, we'll be back in a couple weeks to talk birds with you again, the whole new group of birds, and we'll see you then. Otherwise, thanks for joining us, everybody, on Facebook and YouTube.
I would also just take a second to say that concerning the splits and lumps that we've been discussing for actually quite a bit on this program. If you are an ABA member, go to the forums in ABA community. That's aba.org/community. And we're discussing things there and just having fun in community. So jump on in and, join us there.
Absolutely. Join the ABA, join ABA community, listen to the podcast, all that stuff. We'll be back in a couple weeks. Sign up for ABA's flight calls and you'll be able to get a heads up about 24 hours in advance. So you can make
and we are right to the mark. So
yep. Otherwise,